asked if this was a one-to-one scale.
You got it.
It's pretty close though, to the actual stuff.
503 in your line.
So let's call the November 29th, 2021 Common Council Planning Committee meeting to order. Councilmember Risberger is going to be a bit late, so asked me to start the meeting in his absence. So Councilmember Davies, I'm here. Councilmember Carson.
Here.
Councilmember Drennick.
Here.
All right. Anybody take a look at the minutes of October 25th? Any mistakes or any need to change? Or? All right, so I guess we're approving those minutes. So get into the topics, and topic A, starting out with you, right? Fleet electrification.
Thanks, Mark. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up, something that we've been looking into. Dave Hoteling and I met with NYSEG and their consultant. It's something that's free to the city, is paid for through NYSEG's rates to look into fleet electrification, something that we might eventually do over time, not only with buses potentially, but other city vehicles. So the consultant will put on, I think there's 5 or 6 part series where us and several other municipalities, to be determined whoever decides to opt into the program will participate in a kind of a group session. I think they're all Zoom based, just discussions and an explanation of the process and different factors involved in fleet electrification, so we kind of get a better idea of how that might work for us in the future. So just wanted it to be on your radar that that's something we're working at. No action needed or anything like that this time.
One of those Zoom meetings start.
After the first of the year, hasn't been announced what the date is yet.
The Greg, the electrification of the buses, and or if we wind up doing charging stations, or if we wind up doing anything with a fleet of mini whatevers for navigable cities. Should we be looking at the infrastructure of the transit hub or the parking garage as being something that holds some capacity for, in terms of, square footage, setting that aside for charging?
Yeah, I don't think, based on what we understand now, that we would be charging the buses there. They would probably be charging back at the bus depot on the side of this lane. Possible that we could have, charging infrastructure installed there in the future. But that's certainly something we would ask about as part of this and incorporate that in the plans we do. As far as, this program wouldn't be talking so much about public charging stations like what we have in D-Slot, but we would likely put into the parking garage to some extent. That'd be more something to look at as part of the trying to parking garage design phase. So to answer your question, this program won't really address anything other than the city's current fleet, our buses, our trucks and cars. But looking at the parking garage project, we will be looking at how we can incorporate some charging stations into that.
Right, and were we to decide that the parking garage, that the bus garage wasn't the place to have the charging station essentially for the buses, that we would know maybe some sense of what that storage requirement might be as we're looking at the bus and transit hub plans.
Yeah, we'd be looking at our existing site on Science Lane as a potential, or if we were looking to, in the future, expand our services and have a new bus garage potentially. That's all a what if at this point, but we would be looking at to incorporate that.
Yeah.
This will be a more high level, just what is involved in the process and what do we need to consider as we're moving forward with these plans. So it'll be beneficial for sure, and not just hearing what the consultant has to tell us, but I think having contacts with other municipalities that are going through the same thing, we need to keep in touch with in the future.
Greg, if I could, I think it's great that you're even entering this conversation, and I appreciate that you are. I think this is a great move to make. I mean, we can begin kind of lead by example and beginning to have a planning process for moving our fleet over to electrified vehicles. I think is good forward thinking. So thanks for taking this on. Appreciate it.
Sure. And you may want sometime here from David Hotel, because I know he has kept up on this, he does considerable research and looking into it, he knows what's involved in it. So may at some time want the council to chat with him to just fill in on those.
Well, and if I could, the environmental board has been talking about exactly this. They're kind of putting together a proposal which they're going to be making a pitch about our purchasing policy, about how we begin thinking about kind of not only just electric vehicles, but how we begin thinking about more kind of sustainable purchasing policies with regards to what we do, especially the electric vehicles. So I said, I think it's a good suggestion to have that conversation, maybe include the environmental board, and I will enjoy reporting back to them that you're going to be, attending this and getting some ideas. So thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks. So,
You sure about that?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, thank you, Mark, for starting the meeting for me. I appreciate it. Okay, if we don't have any other questions on topic A, and maybe at the end of the meeting, I could touch base with you for a couple minutes so I get a more full understanding of what conversation was. I'm sure that would help me out. Parking setbacks on Maple Street near Potter Ave. Right, you want to bring us up to speed on this one?
Sure, actually, I want to introduce everybody who hasn't perhaps met him already. Our new public works director, Chris Yakuji, is right there. I'm going to ask him if he would just kind of explain this. You've got a little handout that shows Potter Ave and Maple Street.
Sure. So a while back, we received some concerns about the traffic, the number of trips going through Potter Ave, and we were asked to look at one way. And what we ended up determining was we decided to put up a no through traffic because we felt that there were non-local people using Potter Ave as maybe a possible shortcut. In talking with some of the landlords on Potter Ave, they have said that they've noticed a decrease in traffic, but they expressed concern about exiting Potter Ave onto Maple Ave, Maple Street, because of traffic coming off Lettuce. So we went down, took a look at it, and evaluated where the no parking here to corner sign is, and we did a setback evaluation and actually determined that the signs do need to be moved back to meet proper setback distance to gain good sight distance so we can prevent collisions. Now, we did talk to Chief of Police, and he did not have records of a lot of records of accidents occurring at Maple Street. But it is based on the standards for setback distances. The signage should be moved back on both sides of the street corner, and that's what this what the map shows in your packet. I don't know if you take a look at it or not, but basically looking toward the one way, you have 50 feet of setback distance for the parking sign, and the other way you have 70-foot setback distance. And based on our setback distance evaluation, we need to move the sign so it's 121 feet back from the road entrance on the one side, and the other side should be pushed back about 111 feet. I don't have the I was in a meeting with Greg, so I didn't bring my documentation for the setback 282 request, but I'll get that on you, Greg.
Yeah, basically the 282 request, which normally we send those to the legislative committee, but because this issue had been talked about at planning before, we brought it back here. And we could either go straight to council with the 282 request if you guys agree, or we could wait and go back to the legislative committee. But that's just to change our code to reflect where we would like to place these setbacks on. And if it's not obvious by the name, the stopping sight distance is the distance of the car, the sight distance between the car and the object. It might be crossing the street, in this case pedestrian, the distance they need in order to stop the car, but like the sign speed.
So I have a question. So well, I got a lot of questions actually, because we moved these signs just a few years ago from where they were. So if you're saying that we're not at standard right now.
That's correct.
Okay. That's a whole other conversation, I think. But so you're proposing that we move the one sign to 115 feet away from Potter toward Main Street,
Correct.
Looking at this right, and then the other one would be 70 feet away from Potter Ave, heading into Center City, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
And that's from the street corners.
okay. From the street corners or from the center of Potter?
That's from each street. If you look on the map, you'll see the 70 foot
Okay, I see.
shown for the northern end coming on to Maple Street. And then the 115 foot is from the southern end heading towards, heading south onto Maple Street.
Okay, so where are you coming up with the south, the current site distance, that's based on the middle of Potter Ave?
The current site distance is based on if your car is set behind, if you stop behind the sidewalk and you're looking to the left or to the right,
Okay, I
and you're
see.
looking at oncoming traffic, that's where it's based on.
Gotcha,
In addition to the setback for the no parking sign, I also have to have conversations with the landowner to the south. They have bushes that are almost as tall as I am, about 6 foot tall. And if you look at our code, it requires that they not exceed 30 inches in height. So I need to have a conversation with that landowner as well about having their bushes trimmed so they're only 30 inches in height. Because right now, if you're sitting in a standard sedan, you can't see through the bushes when they're in full bloom.
right, okay. Well, in all the time I've been on council, this has probably been the one street that's been, sorry, my glasses. That's been the most problematic, where I routinely hear complaints about trying to pull out in the traffic and should it be a one-way, should it be a two-way, what would be better? And I mean, the street is the way it is because it's a 100-plus-year-old street with the width of it. And this is going to take traffic or take parking off of Maple Street, which is, that'll be probably the biggest gripe I'm going to hear. But I also feel like Potter Ave is just a matter of time before we have a big accident there. Especially with the population that lives on the street. It's an aging population, and I think they're only gonna have a harder and harder time pulling out onto Maple Street. So I'm in favor of it. I think I'm the one that's gonna bear the brunt of if anybody doesn't like the idea. But it's better than trying to turn it into a two-way street. I think that would upset people even more. So,
Into a one-way street.
into a one-way street, sorry.
Yeah, Chris, if I could ask, what is the reason, other than Dave saying people who live on it like it the way it is? What is the reason for it not making it into a one-way street, given how narrow it is?
Quite honestly, it probably should be a one-way street because there isn't enough room for two vehicles to pass one another without pulling off onto the sidewalk or waiting for someone to come at you. With that said, the residents could not agree, apparently, the last time that this was brought up, on what direction to make it a one-way. So they decided and opted to keep it the way it is.
So, my feeling probably is not popular with some people, but the residents don't own the street. And we should be doing with the street what is the proper, safe thing, because it's a public street. And people who live on the street will change with time. But, ultimately, I feel it's our responsibility to design the street in the way that is going to be safest, not according to what is convenient for people who live on the street. That's just my opinion, and I'm sure it won't sit well with people who live on the street.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you on it, Gary. I know that turning it into a one-way street, though, there's only one direction that you really can do it, and that's toward Maple Street. And so where it's going to become very annoying, to say the least, if anybody that lives on the street, if they want to go home, they come up Lettuce Highway to Maple Street, and they have to go around the entire block just to get into Potter Ave. If we have to go that route, we go that route, but I would rather take baby steps toward it. And if this is a solution, and if it turns out it works, I'd be okay with that. I think turning it into a one-way street, it's gonna make it that much harder to live on the street. People that will eventually sell their house, they're gonna have trouble selling the house because nobody's gonna wanna buy a house on that kind of street that's one way and it's inconvenient to go home.
Every one-way street in the world, people who live on it, when they go around the block to access.
But it's not just the one-way street issue, it's to get out of that street. Because you're forced, if you go one direction, you're forced onto Pine, and then you're forced onto Main Street, because that's a one-way. And then it's almost impossible to make a left, so you have to make a right back towards Center City. The other way onto Maple Street, for all these years, we've had issues with pulling out onto Maple Street, especially trying to go left. So there's not a perfect solution to this, is what I think. There's a series of really not so good solutions, and we have to pick the best one out of all of them. And I think that what you come up with is only slightly better than turning it into a one-way, and I'd rather do that before we go to a one-way.
I'm just looking at doing what's safest.
I know.
Can I ask a question, Dave?
Sure.
Chris, to Dave's point about parking, looking at it, I'm seeing that would only be really a loss of one spot to the north of the intersection and one to the south. Is that about accurate?
I would say you're gonna lose about one spot, correct, to the north. And yeah, about 2 or 3 spots to the south.
Okay.
The one thing I would like to mention that both homes, if they do, I'm not exactly sure who utilizes the parking in the front there the most, but both homes on the corner of Potter and Maple have sizable driveways on Potter.
Greg, did you say that you checked with the police department? How many reported incidents are there for this intersection of Potter
I recall there being no turning movement incidents. The only incidents that were reported, I think they checked back 3 years. Let's say check back further if you're aware.
I think it was 3 years.
There was some side swipes, which were probably moving cars, hitting parked cars on Maple Street. Didn't sound like there were impacts from turning movements onto or off.
So because of the intersection that happened, no motor vehicle crashes to date, or at least in the last 3 years checked?
I do remember one line, and I think it was longer than 3 years ago, because I heard from the people that live on Potter Ave, they tried to pull out, and it was shortly after we had one of these conversations about changing it to one way, and the parking being what it is on Maple, blocking the sight lines, somebody pulled out and they got hit by somebody coming up across the West Highway on the Maple.
This actually discussion, it came up this time around because a student, one of the SUNY students, who is very active in the student association, is also the editor of the college newspaper, had contacted us to say that she was, I think, I'm not sure the direction, but I think she was driving on Potter towards Maple, and a car went to turn into Maple, and she had a near head-on collision. She said they just barely avoided that head-on collision. She was very shook up by that, and she couldn't understand why the city had an arrangement like that where there could be a potential head-on collision. And that's what brought it up this time around.
It won't make it perfect, but getting the no parking signs pushed back further and getting that hedge trimmed, the person coming out on Potter and the person pulling into Potter will have much better visibility.
And then how many complaints have been lodged?
Formal complaints?
I know one resident that has emailed us in the past, and Kristen.
I've been in contact with one resident about 3 times.
And these are residents
On
on
Potter,
Potter.
yeah,
So we got 2 residents on Potter that have made formal complaints.
correct,
And then the incident that the mayor was talking about.
yes. And the resident on Potter is good friends with their neighbors and they pooled. So they tell me they pooled information from their neighbors and the thoughts that they expressed to me were apparently from their neighbors as well.
No, they were complaining about the two-way traffic, or
They were complaining
the sight
about the Maple Street intersection, site distance.
line? That's the complaint I've heard for 10 years. And we moved the sight line once and conversation stopped for a while, so.
I should also mention that when we do speak with the landowner with the bushes, they're probably gonna complain about the landowner on the other side because they have a lattice fence, but you can see through it.
Right.
Whereas their bush, when it's in full bloom in the summertime, you can't even see through it. So I feel that the fence is less of a problem compared to the bush. So I think we're okay leaving the fence, not saying anything about the fence, unless you feel differently.
And is the tree still there on the south side of Maple? At the intersection of Maple and Potter, the south side residence?
Yes, there is a tree there.
And
So
so
you-
isn't that also a hazard?
What I was gonna ask is if they could trim the bottom parts of the branches so we could see underneath of it.
Wasn't city code 8 foot to the bottom of the branches? Is it 6 foot or 8 foot? 12 feet to the bottom? It's like 8 foot.
And that tree's in trouble. I was gonna talk to them about both the bush and the tree.
You're talking about the property just south on the corner of Potter and Maple? right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah,
They have several bushes that would be an issue if they're supposed to be 30, would you say 33, Chris?
30 inches.
30 inches high?
Yeah, I'm looking, I got actually a picture of the address.
part of the issue with that house is in the last 5 years, I think we've had a couple of homeowners and then there's a long period of time where nobody's living there. I think that's what allowed everything to grow much
This
higher
is-
than it used to be.
16 Maple Street is the one with the bush.
So you're gonna talk to both neighbors that are on both the north and south side of Potter Avenue and the intersection of Maple.
I only intend on speaking with 16 Maple about the bush and the tree. The one on the other side, on the north side, I do not see an issue with their fence.
Okay, again, this is a July 2018 Google Maps, it's showing shrubs quite on.
I have a more
Okay.
up-to-date photo. They did trim the bushes. I did measure their bushes too. That's on the corner. They did trim them down below 30 inches.
Yeah, that's Betty Powell. Okay. Mark, do you have any thoughts?
No.
I would be okay with having a 282 sent it direct to the full council. Does anybody have any objection to that? Now, I'm not stuck on that. So if people want that to go to legislative, I'm okay with that too, but I feel like that would be just
I'd be pushing it to council.
Len.
That's fine.
You okay with that? Okay, fine. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Greg, is that required laying on the desks in the public in the hearing?
No.
Okay, next item is West Street pedestrian safety improvements. And again,
We've talked about this previously. There have been some complaints, concerns expressed regarding traffic on West Street going fast, and also just pedestrians feeling unsafe crossing at Clinton Street specifically. And I know we've heard in the office about at Park Drive in the past as well. So we looked into, I think I mentioned it last time, the term is rapid rectangular flashing beacons.
which are what you might see on Cindy's campus on Buggy Road, where the pedestrian is approaching the crosswalk or hits the button, depending how they're designed. These things will flash the traffic, alerting them to the presence of a pedestrian. It's not like a red light, like hawk signal. They heard about that too before. It's not quite to that extent. It's just a more visible beacon. So this is something that we got a quote on. First, I think we'll wait for one more quote maybe, but our estimate's around $12,000 to install 4 of these, one in each direction at each of those 2 crosswalks. It's something that our DPW crews can install themselves, concrete base, they're solar powered, so there's no wiring involved. And we think this would be a good solution for these 2 locations. So we would need to find money for this. Obviously, it's not something that's budgeted. It's something that we could evaluate and bring back to the future finance committee with a recommendation, whether it's 2021 funds, if we have some contingency left over, that might be an option. Or possibly looking at how we're going to shuffle things around next year. So that's where we're at with that.
We did receive 3. One was verbal.
Okay. It was higher.
The other one was 17,000, the quote, and then the verbal one was 35,000. So 12,000.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Greg, do we have, kind of coming up West Street, going up towards Hartford for scenery on that curve? Do we have any signage there that says pedestrian crossing ahead, anything like that? That would be my only concern, is that even with lights, that might still be tricky for folks if they're not anticipating.
Yeah, I'm not sure going up the hill. I thought we did install those, or actually it was a contractor working for Sony when they put the crosswalks, they marked the crosswalks a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. It's the power of their project. I thought they put those pedestrian crossing ahead signs in, but that's something that you would add if they're not there now.
Yeah. I'm talking about like where Center Street comes in, that kind of line turn right into where that other crosswalk would be. That's always a little dicey having to cross that there to lose. Thanks.
Okay, well, I look forward to having this go to finance for a discussion. So, Mark and Len, do you have anything you want to add at this point?
So Greg, I'm just, again, I'm looking at it. July 2021, the intersection. So the 4 you're talking about, where's the location? They're gonna both, 2 are gonna be on West Street for that crosswalk going from Harvard College campus, so that you can get over to Clinton.
Yeah, one in each direction, facing each direction of traffic there, and then 2 more, one in each direction at Hartwood Drive on West Street at Hartwood Drive.
So, I'm trying to understand. Get a Harvard Drive. So, let me say this one more time. I'm looking at the crosswalk that's on West Street, coming from Harvard College's property, where we have a painted crosswalk.
That's Clinton.
And Hartwood. There's also a big crosswalk.
And, well, that's Clinton's Street. Oh, it's further above. No, I'm at the wrong intersection, sorry.
You're at one of the right intersections.
One's at Clinton, one's at the main entrance to Hartford, a little further north.
Yeah, well, I don't think these maps have the crosswalks because they've been stolen, I think, since this time.
Well, they're actually they're clearer on the Google map than they are in real life right now. because
Yeah.
They're pretty much more accurate.
Well, I see the Clinton Street one, I don't see the Parkwood.
Right. And of course, if it snows, when it snows, the parking lines, any indication on asphalt is what memory you must have of it, so having something.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Anything you want to add? Sounds like right now we're waiting for did you say we have all the bids in?
We have all the quotes.
Are all the quotes in?
I just have one verbal one, wait for actual paper.
Okay. Well, you don't need a vote to send this to the finance committee or anything.
No.
So,
No.
okay.
Chris, I assume there's enough storage and these LED lights so that even if we don't see the sun for 4 days in a row, they'll still work.
Yes, they're designed for those type of conditions. I believe the battery, 10-year lifespan, is that right, Greg? I think it's 10 years. Supposed to be, ends up not being quite that much.
Let's move on. Winter decorations for city gateways, and Greg and Chris again.
So we talked about this at this committee, or was it at the finance committee? So I think it was actually last at the finance committee. And we had talked at that time about, well, do we want to install, let me back up actually, the request came from Councilmember Harrington to install what they call a skyline light display of some sort, hanging across River Street, near Gilbert Street, where there used to be one, they had worn out. People used to put it up every winter, I guess originally, according to Jenny, who was here at the time when they did this originally, a local resident had donated it. And there's electrical connection there. And then we discussed this in finance, and there was discussion of, well, where else might you want to consider putting these? Is there another place on River Street that's closer to Associate Drive where the actual sort of entrance to the initial residential area is? Do we also want to look at the east end of town on Main Street, or Main Street by exit 14, where you're coming to the city, or Chestnut Street, west end? So we looked at a few locations, and I'll let Chris talk a little about specifically, what they saw, but ultimately it's kind of complicated. We did get a quote for some 40-foot long skyline lights that would mimic or match the same snowflakes that we have now in downtown Main Street, the same style, with very consistent theme. And those, we got a quote for 4 of them at 40-foot long for $12,620. So they're not cheap. These are, and again, we need to do a little more research and narrow down exactly the size of these. Just talking to the vendor this afternoon before the meeting. It sounds like the ones that they quoted us are too big. They're 5 foot tall, and we need to get smaller ones.
They were supposed to match the ones on the light pole out on Main Street here.
So gotcha. 2.5.
Those ones look like they're 2.5 feet tall, but according to the vendor I spoke with today, they're 5 foot tall. And they recommend a minimum height of the bottom of them being 16 feet from grade to the bottom. And if they're 5 foot tall, that means we're gonna be 21 feet hanging, which then we're into power wires and internet cable and telephone wires and all that. So it's a bit problematic. If you look at, on Chestnut Street on the west end, you have a lot of pavement. It's just very problematic. We have to install poles across from one another, and there really aren't any existing poles that are across from one another. And when they are, they're loaded with wires already. So it's problematic. We have to research it more. On the east end, near the cemetery, there was a likely spot. There's an existing pole right across from the entrance to the cemetery. We were thinking maybe putting a new pole somewhere there near the entrance to the cemetery and running it across there. But again, we're into the issue with the existing wires. So we got some more research to do and figure out what options we have. Clearance is the most important part. Clearance from the existing wires and clearance from tall vehicles.
So you're talking that we would have to install new poles?
Correct. That's correct. We would try to utilize one existing pole, and then we'd have to install a second pole. The poles are about what, $4,000 is what we're looking at, and then probably another $4,000 to install the cable that would go from both across the street for both poles, because the lights are then hung on the cable, and then you have the hardware to connect the cable on either end. Then you have the wiring for the outlet to connect the lighting to the existing power. So you're looking at a substantial cost for each one. So,
The one at River Street.
$12,000 each.
If it were kept in its exact same location in River Street by Gilbert now, that'd be the easiest one to do, because there is power source, an outlet already in a pole, and a string across. We need to verify the height that's there and what the clearance would be based on whatever light setup we select. So that's probably our best chance at doing anything initially. But as far as lead time, I think it doesn't look too good.
Yeah, they've told me 3 months to 6 months lead time to, if we purchase them today. Apparently there's a supply chain issue, as with everything. So
So I guess feedback we'd be looking for from this committee is just in general, of those 4 locations, generally speaking, how do they sound to you? I mean, the last time we talked about River Street, maybe a better location being closer to Associate Drive, that would require a similar, cost of its installation. New pole, new span wire.
we did look up there at the entrance to Drogan's. That looked favorable to us, but again, depending on the height of the decoration and the separation from the site, the height distance and the existing wires, it's problematic. So we just got to figure that out.
So the 4 locations, we're talking River Street, one on the east end, Chestnut Street.
Main Street near exit 14, like by the Golden Guernsey, somewhere along there.
Right.
Chris, did you say 12,000 per location?
Correct.
Per
So-
location?
Per location. So yeah, $4,000 for the decoration.
50 grand to do 4.
Yeah, 4,000 for the decoration, 4,000 assuming you only have to install 1 pole, and 4,000 for the hardware, the cable, the electrical connection, meter if the NICE is going to require a meter, because we don't know that yet, because NICE has not been giving us clear direction on how they're going to bill us for it.
But you're talking 50,000 plus the light,
Including lights.
including that includes the lights.
I just had a thought.
Yes.
I can speak. What if we also looked into more snowflakes in those areas instead of the swag? They're $300 or $400 a piece. Plus whatever, you need to do to connect them, but that might be a more reasonable option.
Yeah, I think you kind of lost me at $50,000. I mean, I would love to do it, but after we just went through the budget from hell.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I would certainly agree, Judy, if we're gonna do anything, giving the rest of the community something that's akin to what we've got on Main Street. Shopping district makes an awful lot of sense. If we can even afford that.
Especially if it helps draw in more people
Oh, yeah.
to Main Street.
And also give people who live on the East End and River Street, et cetera, some sort of sense that there's more to only out than those 4 blocks.
Yeah.
I know that in the past, we've partnered with DO for some decorations downtown as well, so we could check with them to see if they have anything that they could assist with as well, if we go that route.
On a related subject, can I ask whatever happened with, we used to have wreaths. They were a nice touch.
I think
Where?
they were what
On my post.
we replaced with the snowflakes, weren't they? Because they're in such
Was
rough
it a
shape.
case of replacement?
I think it was because they were so rough, they were just falling apart.
Oh.
That I believe, that's my understanding. Because
I'm
the,
trying to remember where they were, exactly, just.
They're literally on the light post, and you're right, approximately the same position. I think that the snowflakes come out. I think the wreaths might have been more centered to the post, but
yeah, we did the snowflakes in 2017, I think, they went up.
5 years now.
Yeah, and I think it was because of those, the prior decorations were just so shot.
Yeah.
DO asked us if we could do something,
Yeah, I
But-
remember this.
but then we've also got the banners, but the DO did the holiday banners that match our regular banners, so like I said, there might be something there that they could help with.
Mark, you have a question?
I have a point, and this is deja vu from the finance committee meeting, but I'd be far more supportive of snowflakes and wreaths. I'd like us to see more kind of universal symbols rather than symbols that come from religious congregations, especially as we're trying to, and we are, I hope, kind of respectful of differences community, and I think that should start with what we are as a city purchasing and displaying on our posts or where it might be.
Sure.
So snowflakes works.
Reminds us that it's cold out. So, does anybody disagree, thinking we should look more into the pricing on the, okay, Len?
It's a 22 project anyways.
Yeah.
Supply chain issues of 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, okay.
Although I do like Judy's suggestion, maybe look a little bit more into that.
Yeah, the snowflakes, I was gonna say, if we could get, some quotes on what that would cost us for a certain number, and then, send it to finance. See if that's something they wanna do, and how many we're gonna buy, and then bring it to council.
We can do that.
All right. All right, we got the pavement markings update.
So pavement markings, we have had a major struggle with OH striping. Since I've been here 2 months now, and we have not been able to get them to commit to come to the city to do the striping work that they were contracted to do. I know that in previous meetings, we wanted to do specific areas, specific crossings before snow fell. And it's been very difficult. We've been emailing them, calling them, and they are non-responsive. We reached out to two other striping companies, and their swamp backlog, there was no way they could get to us until next spring. So Greg and I we talked with John down the streets, my deputy, and we're gonna have our guys do the crosswalks at a minimum that remain. I think there are 3 of them we're looking to do.
Yeah, I think the priority ones we talked about were on West Street at the intersections that we were referring to, talking about those.
Yeah.
Earlier topic.
Is it too late to do it though?
It's not ideal.
Yeah, I wonder if will the paint stick?
That's my question.
It's been frozen for a long.
We're way below the ambient temperatures of doing paint, but it's better than nothing at this point.
Here's a dumb question. What are there any other options that we have that are not overly expensive? Like, what do they do in really cold regions it snows a lot more than it does here? Is there something else that's done for crosswalks?
I mean, the options are paint, different types of paint.
Yeah.
There's thermoplastic, which that's where you could try that maybe. That's not something that I don't think we have the capability to contract. And that's where you heat up pavement, you put these down, you heat them up, kind of melt in place. But even those in air conditioning aren't gonna work as well as if you do that. There are other kinds of roll in when you lay pavement. So that's not really. It's not really a good option. The thermoplastic working because we've never done that before. I don't think we could look at that.
I think it's gonna be the same issue with contractor availability.
Probably.
I think the main thing I take away from all of this is when we're gonna go to bid here this winter for a new striping contract. If OH striping is a little bidder, I don't think we want to work with them. That's our suggestion. That'd be our request, that we don't work with them.
If they're not fulfilling the contract now.
No.
So Chris, you're okay with not doing the striping now and then go into 22?
We're gonna do the 3 crosswalks now with our crews, and then go into 2022, spring 2022, going under another contract. And this contract, I'd like to have bonding, and I'd like to hold retainage too, because we did not have that with this contractor. That's kind of a sledgehammer, so to speak.
Just on the body.
The bonding and the retainage.
Just to be clear, so we haven't actually done any of the arrows or the parking spots or any of that, no parking signage.
Some of their scopes have been done. I don't know what percentage, maybe 30%, that they had done earlier this year. But of the things that we talked about in the last month or two, none of that. I think we talked about some parking spaces on Beach Street and some other things that had come up.
If we're able to determine, move forward a list of the folks that didn't get their stuff done, that we're expecting that they would, that we might be able to connect with them as council members and say, your slotted for the spring or the summer, just so that they've got that, feedback from council.
Yeah, we could send you our, update our list of what was done and what wasn't done.
Yeah,
It's not gonna have
there's a lot of people that we promised, I know I did.
I'm concerned about in front of the Y, because we did paint a crosswalk there a few years ago. We made that a crosswalk so that there is an expectation that cars stop there for pedestrians. The crosswalk is barely
Visible.
noticeable, visible. The problem is that some people think it's a crosswalk and some people don't see it as a crosswalk, and therefore it's dangerous. And we have children crossing the street there, and there's an expectation that cars will stop. Yet, for many drivers, it would be reasonable for them to say,
They
I
didn't
have
see
no
it.
idea there's a crosswalk there.
Are there
So
signs at that location?
There used to be a sign in the middle of the street and that's gone. I don't think
there's anything
I
on the
don't
side.
know if there are side street signs there. I'm
Can,
not sure.
can we get that added to the list of the other three?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, any other questions about crosswalks? Anybody? Last one, ongoing street projects update.
So I'm just going here, I got a list here that we pulled together just before the meeting. 2021 completed projects. We did Richmond Ave drainage improvements. We replaced a hydrant replacement there. Pavement maintenance, we did crack seal on various streets. We did fiber mat replacement, pavement replacement, repair on Bierner Circle, Bronx Street, Center Street, Walling Ave to Draper, Cleveland Street, Clinton Street, College Terrace, Commercial Drive, Crestmont Terrace, Fonda Ave, Kearney Street, Moore Street, Overlook Drive, Pearl Street, St. Mary's Road, Schaefer Ave, and Wilcox Ave. That's 16 roads altogether. We did pavement rehabilitation, including catch basin replacement as needed. This is for Fairview Street, Belmont Circle, north and south, Reynolds Street, Elm Street right away, new curb at the corner of Normal Avenue, East Street to Bugby Road to Town Line pavement reconstruction. Pavement reconstruction, Frederick Street. This was Reynolds Street to East End Ave. And we did a new catch basin and guide rail installation on Frederick Street as well. That was 2021 projects. 2022 planned projects include pavement maintenance, crack seal, various streets to be determined. We'll evaluate that in the springtime. Fiber mat, again, various streets to be determined. Pavement rehabilitation, East Street. This will be from Mary Street to Bugby Road. 2-inch M&P, it's $165,000. Spot full depth reconstruction, dollar amount to be determined. Catch basin replacement, dollar amount to be determined. Spot curb replacement, sidewalk at 90 East to Hazel Street, cost to be determined. Traffic signal at Graduate Avenue, cost to be determined. Gardner Place, remove existing pavement and install 4-inch HMA. New curbs, catch basin replacement, cost to be determined. Possibly, we may do Burtis Lauren Drive. This is just sidewalk, Greg?
I think if we did it, no one paid any sidewalk, but that's kind of the reason we put possible. We're still kind of do all these estimates and see what fits in our budget.
Okay. Others possibly to be determined based on funding. Pavement reconstruction, looking to do West Street, Chestnut to Center, and creek culvert replacement, possibly Silver Creek at Clinton Street, and possibly Silver Creek at Center Street and Brook Street. To touch on those two last ones, we noticed that existing catch basins were kind of settling and caving in. We contacted Delaware Engineering, had them come and do a structural evaluation of those bridges. And it doesn't look good, especially the one on Clinton Street. We're actually meeting with them Wednesday. They're gonna go over their report with us and tell us their recommendations. So I don't have a recommendation of what I don't have a detail of their recommendation yet, but we will know soon.
I have a quick question on Normal Ave, Elm Street. Curb looks great. The distance from the curb into the lawn, it's probably about this much of crushed stone that's there. What's the plan in the spring? Because I know it's all frozen over now.
That will be sidewalk in the spring. We're planning on installing a new sidewalk in that area.
All along Upper Elm Street and wrapped around to meet the old sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then where it cuts in, where that catch basin is,
Yeah.
we didn't have time to fix the catch basin, but that catch basin needs to be pushed out into the road. That curve is gonna be straightened out and make a
Yeah, I
nice
was wondering about that.
swoop around here. It looks ugly now, but it'll be fixed in the spring.
Doesn't look ugly, just looks abstract.
Looks odd.
So Chris, the work being done on West Street from Chestnut Street up to Center Street, you said that's paving, that's full and done paving, or what?
That's actually part of the project we're gonna be doing with, who is the contractor that got that?
Harvey Robinson, that's the one that's gonna happen this year.
Right, right.
Road delays and whatnot. not
Sure.
gonna start till spring.
Right.
Full reconstruction, all utilities, everything from Chestnut to Center.
To Center, so that's our, so we're gonna end at Center.
Right, Center up had been done, not full reconstruction, but part of it was in 2017, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So that's been better.
Chip was still on council. Okay. Anybody have anything else?
Is that a report, Chris, that you can hand out to the council, that you just showed off your phone?
Yeah, it's actually,
I mean, it's an impressive work list that you,
You didn't write all that down?
just as you did.
I started to, and then I gave up after about
we
2 seconds.
quickly prepared that list in Greg's office before coming here, so, and he emailed it to me, so I could.
Yeah, you could email that to all the council.
Absolutely.
That's a great idea.
Sure.
Excellent. Any other questions? I just want to thank everybody for giving input today. And I guess we're close the meeting out.